Carney's big shift on foreign affairs and a state called Palestine. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
All the news you need to know.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
It may be one of the most significant foreign policy announcements from a Canadian Prime Minister in decades. Mark Carney plans to have his government recognize a Palestinian state. That will happen, he says, at the United Nations General Assembly in September. He made that announcement after a cabinet meeting in Ottawa.
Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada will increase its efforts in supporting strong democratic governance in Palestine and the contributions of its people to a more peaceful and hopeful future. I spoke today with President Abbas at length to reaffirm his commitments. Canada reiterates that Hamas must immediately release all hostages taken in their horrific terrorist attack of October 7th, that Hamas must disarm, and that Hamas must play no role in the future governance of Palestine.
So as you just heard, this recognition of statehood does come with many conditions, and the Prime Minister insisted they are conditions that must be met.
It's predicated, it relies upon the representations that have been made by the Palestinian Authority, representations that have been made now several times, both publicly spoken, in writing to me as Prime Minister, and representations that I tested, if you will, President Abbas in a lengthy and robust call today to confirm the intentions and the ability to do so. Now, part of what Minister Anand and her colleagues are doing is to provide some resources to help with some governance aspects of those. But of course, the most important elements of those representations with respect to the democratic process. Who cannot be part of that process? Hamas. Who can play no role in the future state? Hamas. The demilitarization and the persistent demilitarized Palestinian state. And of course, the reinforcement of the importance of living side by side in peace and security with Israel.
This is seen by some as a big departure from Canada's traditional stance on this issue, which has long supported Israel's right to exist and to defend itself, while at the same time advocating for the need for a two-state solution negotiated by the two sides. Speaking in Ottawa, though, after the Prime Minister's announcement, Stephen Brown, the CEO of the National Council of Canadian Muslims, called the news historic.
This decision is more than symbolic. It is a small step in the right direction and the recognition that sovereignty is essential to the survival and dignity of all people, which, of course, includes the Palestinian people. In the face of the government of Israel's ongoing atrocities, this act of recognition affirms the belief and the relief of long-term peace cannot come without Palestinian self-determination. We appreciate Minister Carney, Prime Minister Carney, and Minister Anand for working towards this important and critical step, and we appreciate their ongoing dialogue and partnership towards working positively towards a Canada that welcomes and stands consistently for human rights.
Not everyone is pleased with the development, though. In a statement, Israel's ambassador to Canada said, quote, "We will not sacrifice our very existence by permitting the imposition of a jihadist state on our ancestral homeland that seeks our annihilation." Speaking in Geneva, the Speaker of Israel's parliament, the Knesset, Amir Ohana, denounced these moves from countries like Canada, France, and the UK to recognize a Palestinian state.
We are ushering in a new era in the Middle East, an era of increased stability, coexistence, and cooperation. Rewarding Hamas by recognizing a Palestinian state in light of October 7th will not bring stability, coexistence and cooperation. It will bring more murder of Israelis and Jews. If you wish for that, if you wish what you call a Palestinian state, put it up in London, in Paris, in your countries, which become more and more similar to the Middle East. The so-called peace that some European countries advocate for will only result in more war. But the war we are fighting will result in peace.
Adding more complexity to the issue, a late-night post on social media from U.S. President Donald Trump, who said, quote, "Wow, Canada has just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada." There is a deadline looming for Canada on trade and tariffs with the Trump administration. It's tomorrow, August 1st. Prime Minister Carney admitted yesterday tomorrow could come and go without a trade deal with the Americans.
These are complex, they're comprehensive, they're constructive negotiations with the Americans are ongoing. It's possible that they may not conclude by the 1st of August. But we'll see. The team's there. We're working hard. Conversations today, myself. So we'll see. There are, and the specific aspect of the question included a reference to the European Union deal. And could it include, could our accord with the United States include commitments on investments and other aspects? And I just observed that there are many areas for cooperation between Canada and the United States.
On the Palestinian statehood issue, the Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre said on social media that Mr. Carney's decision rewards violence, not peace, and legitimizes Hamas. The NDP, though, called it a welcome step forward. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
On News Radio.
And he's my friend on the right side of things. Michael Taube is back with us, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
I'm just great. Great to hear from you today. Let's start, Michael, with your latest column about the Sean Feucht controversy. He is the MAGA-aligned Christian singer, Abbotsford, British Columbia, the latest community to deny him a permit to perform, which I find a little bit surprising. Anybody who knows anything about the evangelical Christian movement in Canada knows that Abbotsford is kind of part of the Bible Belt, if you will, in Canada. But nevertheless, I would like to know what you think about the effort of what I would say Canada's left wing to have this performer's concerts canceled.
Yeah, I mean, putting aside the comments about him being MAGA and so forth, yes, he's a supporter of U.S. President Donald Trump, but I mean, again, they're using it in a purely negative tone rather than just looking upon it as the fact that Mr. Feucht is a musician, but he is also a Christian pastor, and he is also politically oriented. He ran as a Republican in Florida a number of years ago, did not win the primary, came in a very distant third, but he is clearly aligned to some fashion. And again, I mean, what my column basically went through, and to be fair, others have also discussed it too. Nothing I've really said is wildly original. My point was, it's making a mountain out of a molehill, a phrase that I know I like to use a lot, and I do use in some of my other work, but I'm not unique. A lot of people use that statement. But the reason and rationale is you're looking at Mr. Feucht, who really is a very little-known musician. He's not even extremely well-known as a Christian musician or within his genre. He's had a number of albums. Most have been self-published. He did have one that got a little bit of chart standing on the Christian music listings, which is good, obviously. and means he obviously has some talent and ability, but he's not a well-known name. He's not a major figure. Now, he has been aligned, to be fair, with a number of protests and rallies that people were aware of and was reported in the U.S. media. He was also part of a meeting, a group of 50 pastors and religious leaders who are faith leaders who met with Donald Trump in the White House during his first presidential term, just before the first impeachment hearings really sort of began to motor along. So Mr. Foyt has certainly been in the public eye. No one is doubting that. But I think that really in the case of Canada, we can get into it a little bit, I think it's really a mountain of a molehill. He was going to go through 6 different communities in Canada, probably wouldn't have had wild attendance, probably wouldn't have had, huge amounts of people lining up to see him. There obviously is core support, and they would have gone out to support him, his music, and otherwise. But if we truly believe in free speech and we believe in freedom of association and we believe in free thought, which in theory Canada is supposed to, the attack on this gentleman is preposterous, and it's been basically geared simply because, God forbid, he supports Donald Trump and the U.S. Republicans. I mean, is this really what we've come down to, Rob, that we can't even handle difference of opinion in this country, irrespective of whether you agree or disagree with what Mr. Foyt believes in, be it religion, politics, or otherwise?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question for you, Michael. What do you think this says about those cherished fundamental charter rights of freedom of expression, freedom of religion, freedom of peaceful assembly?
Yeah, I mean, I basically allude to it, but it doesn't say very much about the way Canada looks at it right now. And it's fine to give lip service to these comments, and we know lots of people, you and I both, who come on shows and say over and over again, oh, Canada firmly believes in free speech, and this is what we believe, and this is what our country was founded on. Yes and no. I mean, obviously, we do believe in free speech, but we have a very different way of looking at it than, say, our neighbors to the south, that being the United States. And I've done a lot of contrasts and comparisons between the two. Others have as well. And to be perfectly fair, the United States respects free speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, and otherwise far more so than Canada ever has. Long before all that we're going through right now and the various tariff battle, et cetera, it's always been more respected in the U.S. And it was basically, that's part of the founding of the country, whereas for us, it was part and parcel of the country, but there was always a break between free speech and so-called hate speech and otherwise. We've always looked at it differently politically and legally. And for that reason, I'm not surprised, obviously, that Canadians have erupted this way. But again, it's the mountain out of a molehill argument. This was a little-known Christian musician, and they are basically making him out to be the worst possible human being, at least for the last few days, because his points of view are different than, say, the way some Canadians look at it, and to be fair, the way some Americans look at politics and issues, even those who are Republicans as well. So I think that really it doesn't say very much that Canada has done this, Rob, and it doesn't say very much that we have created this situation, which could have been easily avoided, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, if they had just allowed him to go through 6 venues, 6 small venues, and that would have been the end of it.
Okay. Hey, speaking of charter rights, how about a charter right to a bike lane in Toronto? We'll ask Michael for his thoughts on the latest developments in Ontario Premier Doug Ford's big bike lane battle in Toronto. This is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers.
on News Radio.
Well, we tried. Michael Taube is back with us, syndicated columnist, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Joins us every week from the center of the universe, Toronto, Ontario, Canada.
God, no, I am not from the center of the universe, but call it what you wish.
Where sometimes the premier acts like he's still a member of the Toronto City Council from Etobicoke and keeps sticking his nose in local planning decisions like bike lanes. Doug Ford is waging war on bike lanes in downtown Toronto, willing to have his government go to court. Suffered a blow yesterday with the judge in his ruling saying that there is essentially a constitutional right to a bike lane, that citing Section 7 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that it's about life, liberty, and security of the person. In other words, if you rip up a bike lane, people will be losing their security of the person. Some people are thinking, well, you might be taking the charter a bit too far there. And maybe this is an opening for Premier Ford to use the notwithstanding clause. But what do you think about how all this is playing out?
Now, with deference to the listeners, because Rob may not even know this himself, I actually wrote on this issue. It's actually going to be, it's up on the National Post site. It's a column in tomorrow's paper.
Okay.
So I actually tackled this. I didn't know about timing, so sometimes I don't state when things are coming out. But yeah, I mean, this is quite something. I've been writing about bike lanes related to Ontario Premier Doug Ford since last year, and I've done a few, mostly for the National Post on this issue. But this is really something. As I said, it's hard to believe, but we've now come to a point in our constitutional discussions that removing bike lanes is somehow unconstitutional. Now, there's a law too, and we don't obviously have an immense amount of time, but there was Justice Paul Shabbos, who was actually the individual, if people have been following this issue, who granted an injunction in April, which had initially started last December, which temporarily paused the removal of bike lanes on 3 busy Toronto intersections. And that is actually, so he's been part of it for a while. That's Bloor Street, Yonge Street, and University Avenue. And anyone who's gone to Toronto knows that the amount of traffic of cars, trucks, and bikes is pretty immense. So the suggestion has always been that when you narrowed the lanes and you created bike lanes, you were actually reducing the amount of space for cars and trucks and others to go through, which means that you were slowing down traffic flow and that you were creating more congestion. Now, naturally, there are experts, most of them cycling enthusiasts, who argue the exact opposite, and I have seen some of the studies and things that they claim that it actually improves it, that it actually does not slow down traffic. Basically, long story short, in my column, I would like to think, common sense, which is that anyone who's ever driven in a major metropolitan city like Toronto or anything big that you may have seen in Canada, the U.S., and elsewhere knows full well whether bike lanes do or do not exist. Cyclists weave in and out of traffic all the time. So, yeah, some of them do follow the lines that have been painted, but many don't. And for that reason, cars, trucks, and others, we have to be careful what's happening. We have to ensure that no one gets hit or injured, and it does slow down traffic. So the logic in the argument makes no sense. The judge's position is strange, too. So I don't really get it, Rob. I really don't.
Okay. Well, look, for more on that, I just see your column has been posted on the National Post website. Of course, Ontario's activist judiciary would invent a right to bike lanes. Encourage our listeners to read that. And we'll speak next week, Michael. Thank you so much.
You betcha.
Bye-bye. Michael Taube, syndicated columnist, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. More on the bike lane issue still ahead in this hour of our program. Now you know on News Radio. Tomorrow is another Trump-imposed deadline day, August 1st. That was another date on the calendar that the American president set for trade deals between the United States and other countries, including Canada. Canada and the United States do not have a deal as yet, with about 24 hours to go. For some analysis, we are joined by Professor Elliot Tepper, distinguished senior fellow at Carleton University. Good to speak with you again, Professor. Welcome back.
Always glad to be on air with you, Rob.
I should start with the latest breaking news. Trump has extended Mexico's 25% tariffs for 90 days.
Yes.
And we have seen this happen before. Extensions have been granted. And I'm wondering, what do you think the chances are that Canada could get a similar reprieve?
Oh, it's pretty good, I would think. We're in a situation right now where we have two options with anything you hear about Canada and the U.S. and negotiations. The first is it's a negotiation tactic. So they say, we're going to bear down on you, says the U.S. And Canada says, we aren't going to sign any deal unless it's a good deal. but it also just might be the reality of the situation. We are due tomorrow, and the possibility does exist that intense negotiations are going on, but they're not leading as yet to a deal. Donald Trump has said, well, we haven't been really focusing on Canada lately, so I think one way or another, Rob, our turn is coming.
Okay. The Prime Minister, during his news conference yesterday, that was mainly about Palestinian statehood, but also included this. Mark Carney seemed to admit yesterday that he is not expecting a deal by tomorrow's deadline. And what do you think about that admission from Prime Minister Carney?
It's probably just, again, two possibilities, a negotiation tactic, but probably it's reality. Our teams are apparently in deep negotiations in all of this. The possibility exists that, no, we won't meet the deadline, but neither side is too concerned about it, but you never know. I think talking about other trade frameworks, there's been a lot of them. So far, Donald Trump has said, well, we've concluded frameworks now with 11 out of our 15 top trade partners. So that possibility exists, if you look at those, that we might be facing a 15% across the board tariff, no matter what happens. Donald Trump is apparently making that his baseline, but now we know that Canada is fighting back very much on that we have a far more deeply interconnected trading relationship with the U.S., and that the U.S., according to President Trump, we don't need anything you want, but anything you have. But Canada says, well, we have energy, and you want that. So there's no template here, and nor really a fixed timetable. But I come back to a couple other things. We were talking with the U.S. not about just tariffs, but yes, tariffs in a much broader framework. We were going to have an economic and a security deal. I've not heard anything lately about that, Rob. And there's also a couple caveats when we talk about the U.S. and tariffs. The first is a legal caveat that there are court cases, starting with the U.S. Trade Court, which is specifically designed to look at tariff cases, that said all of these conversations that Donald Trump is carrying on over tariffs, all these actions, they're not legal because he doesn't have the power to do this. Only Congress has the power to deal with tariffs. And second of all of these national security provisions under which we are being slapped with these tariffs, those aren't applicable, that this was a misuse. So I think backing off from all of that, and when we talk about what's going to be happening, I think the new NAFTA is going to turn out to be a much more significant, or at least a very significant aspect of all this. We signed a trade agreement. Much of trade going to the U.S. is still covered by that trade agreement, and they're protected. But so the real important date is probably July 1st, 2026, although tomorrow is important, but it's not as important perhaps. So August 1st, 2025 may fade, but July 1st, 2026 is looming.
I must ask you, Professor, what you think about what you've seen from Mark Carney during his, at least, public dealings with Donald Trump, because this pair seems to get along much better than, say, Mr. Trump ever did with Mr. Trudeau. What do you think?
Yes, it certainly looks that way, but fundamentally we know, Rob, that Donald Trump doesn't care about personalities. He certainly doesn't care about friendships. We've seen that over and over again. Both Trudeau and Carney have been hailed at various times as Trump whisperers. Other states come to us to say, how are you handling this? How are you doing all this? So far, it certainly looks like Mark Carney is doing an impressive job in that regard. It does not save us either from tariffs or for verbal tensions. We have not heard lately, Rob, about the 51st state rhetoric, and perhaps that's a tribute to the Prime Minister's impact on Donald Trump. But then again, that could change tomorrow.
Okay. In a late-night post on social media, President Trump expressed disappointment with Canada's decision to recognize a Palestinian state. How, if at all, could that complicate things?
Rob, this is a really bad time for Canada to break off with the United States, break away from the U.S. on a central policy portfolio. And it's one where the U.S. is actively engaged right now in a process to broker a deal. And it suddenly looks, I suspect, from Washington's point of view, that we're suddenly riding off on some kind of a tangent, and that tangent has no bearing on the immediate situation. The nightmare in Gaza has to end, no question about that. The U.S. is working on it, working on a deal, and basically I think what the U.S. could be saying is, why aren't you following your own Canadian foreign policy in this regard instead of breaking away from us? Canada says that there is no role going forward for Hamas in governing. The U.S. has said this. The Arab League has just now met and said, we demand that Hamas disarms and it's removed from military and governing power. It's not going to be a terrorist organization. Supposedly, that's our foreign policy position, but this announcement doesn't do a thing to promote on the ground right now an alleviation of the misery, and the U.S. says that's what we are trying to do. So I doubt that Donald Trump's going to be impressed. He's likely to see this as a deliberate and a wrong-headed confrontation with U.S. policy, providing no help in ending the conflict, just when we are asking the U.S. for a very good deal on tariffs.
Thank you so much for your time today, Professor. Always good to have your analysis.
Oh, it's always good to have your questions. Take care, Rob.
Thank you. That is Professor Elliot Tepper. He is Distinguished Senior Fellow at Carleton University in Ottawa. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
And if you're ever looking for a podcast of our show, Now You Know with Rob Snow, we have a great new mobile app that will help you hear our show when you want to. Listen live, listen to the podcast. It's called the Seeker app. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R, and it has all kinds of exclusive audio that you won't hear anywhere else. News, music, and sports. You can download Seeker for iOS or Android. That's Seeker, spelled S-E-E-K-R, and Now You Know with Rob Snow is on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Well, I'm at that point of the year. I mean, it is the last day of July, after all, that I'm keeping an eye on the Major League Baseball standings because, wow, what a great year the Toronto Blue Jays are having. They had hit a bit of a cold streak against the last place team in the American League East, the Baltimore Orioles, but finally pulled out a win yesterday. It was a close one. It was a close one. 9-8, not exactly a pitcher's duel, but hey, they'll take it. So the Blue Jays remain atop the standings in the American League East. They're 64-46. They're now 5-5 in their last 10 games, and that's good for a 4-game lead over the New York Yankees, and they're 5 games ahead of the Boston Red Sox. And today is the trade deadline in Major League Baseball. It's 6 o'clock Eastern time today is the actual trade deadline in Major League Baseball. And the Jays made a big move today. They have acquired a former Cy Young Award winner, Shane Bieber, from the Cleveland Guardians. So he's 30 years old. The big question mark surrounding this guy is that he's coming back from Tommy John surgery. So he's in the minors right now. He's made 4 rehab starts already, all in Double-A. So they're hoping that they can kind of get him through rehab and then bring him up to the show. Going the other way to Cleveland is prospect Cal Steven. And but this guy Bieber, when he's been healthy, I mean, he has been one of the best starters in Major League Baseball. He picked up that Cy Young Award in the shortened 2020 season. He had a 1.63 ERA. Wow, 1.63 ERA, 77 and a third innings. He had a great season in 2022, pitching for the Cleveland Guardians. Still getting used to that, Cleveland Guardians. 2.88 ERA, over 200 innings. And, we'll see what happens if he can kind of recapture some of the former glory. If he plays next season for the Toronto Blue Jays, he would be paid about $16 million. And I guess the Blue Jays see some value in that today. Just taking a look at the markets. today, the financial markets. Two stocks are really in focus today in financial markets. With the Nasdaq higher, that's the tech heavy index. All the big tech companies are listed on the Nasdaq. It's up about 1% today. The rally is being driven by Meta Platforms, parent company of Facebook, hit an all-time high today. It's up about 12.33% today, $781 a share now for Meta, which is approaching $2 trillion in market cap. And Microsoft is having a good day as well. It's up about 4.5% again on some strong financial news from Microsoft. So it's up $22 on the day. Microsoft at $535 US dollars there. $535 a share for Microsoft, which touched today market capitalization, if you can believe this, of $4 trillion. Microsoft is worth twice now the GDP of Canada. Can you believe that? That's incredible. We'll be right back. We're going to talk a little bit more about Doug Ford's bike lane battle. Premiers fighting over bike lanes is actually a national story. I mean, it's news today in Halifax. Tim Houston's government fighting with the Halifax City Council over bike lanes. It's been an issue. We're reporting on it today on News Radio in Calgary, and the Smith government doing battle with the municipal officials and the mayor in Calgary over the future of bike lanes. And I mean, Doug Ford in Ontario has been willing to go to court and lose and launch appeals all over bike lanes in downtown Toronto. Our correspondent in Toronto will join us next, the great Richard Southern. That's coming up. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know, and this is News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford has been fighting a bike lane battle in Toronto. In the last Ontario provincial election, Premier Ford campaigned on removing bike lanes in Toronto's downtown core, saying they're causing gridlock. And now an Ontario court has weighed in. The Ford government is on the losing end, but is vowing an appeal. Richard Southern covers the Ford government for News Radio in Toronto. He joins us today, and thank you for doing so, Richard. Good to hear from you again.
Good to be here. How are you, Rob?
I'm great, thank you.
Did you bike into work today?
No, I don't bike to work. What is the Premier's longstanding position, though, on bike lanes?
Doesn't like them. And wants to get rid of three of the most prominent ones here in Toronto along Bloor, Yonge, and University. He made this, as you say, Rob, kind of a campaign issue, and he called a snap election in February, and then the government subsequently passed legislation to get rid of these lanes. And that legislation, I mean, circumvented the city of Toronto. Of course, bike lanes, this is a city issue, really, right? And along comes Doug Ford, who contends that the bike lanes are slowing down traffic because they do eliminate a lane of vehicle traffic. And he said, no, we want to get rid of these ones. We want to move them to secondary roads, was what he said. And so he passed legislation to circumvent the city and get rid of the lanes. However, along comes a group of cyclists, and they call themselves Cycle Toronto. And they take the government to court over this. They take Doug Ford to court saying, listen, we believe getting rid of these lanes infringes on our charter right to safety, because we're going to have to mix with the cars and the trucks again. We could get hurt. We could get killed. And yesterday, a judge agreed with that group. He said getting rid of the lanes is unconstitutional because people, he said, quote, are at risk of harm and death. And so for now, these lanes are remaining. But as you say, the Premier here in Ontario promising to appeal this, which of course will cost taxpayers more money in court fees, but he's promising to keep fighting to get rid of these lanes.
Yeah. So when that court ruling came down, I'm wondering, like, what kind of reaction did you get from government officials? Was it like eye rolling? Oh my goodness! Give us a sense of that, Richard.
Well, yeah, we had a statement from the transportation minister who said, listen, we were elected by the people of Ontario with a clear mandate to restore lanes of traffic and get drivers moving by removing bike lanes off of major roads. So, they're pretty much saying, listen, we're going to keep fighting this. We heard from the mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, who is against getting rid of the bike lanes, Rob. And she has not publicly bickered with the premier too much on this. She talks a lot about wanting to reach a compromise whereby, the lanes, the bike lanes can remain, but you can fit more cars on there. She said, listen, we're still reviewing this, but we feel that bike lanes keep people safe. So that was kind of her response.
Okay. I just find it really interesting. You have these conservative premiers all across the country. This isn't just an Ontario story. Fighting municipal governments over bike lanes, which would, be a local traffic issue. Our colleagues in Calgary today are reporting on the divide between the Smith government in Alberta and the Gondek government in Calgary over this. And this is in the Halifax Chronicle Herald today, Richard. This is the lead in one of their top stories today. Quote, summers are usually quiet at City Hall, but not this year. Bike lanes versus traffic congestion debates, rumors about impending strong mayor powers, and an ultimatum from the premier's office have spiced it up lately. Couldn't you write that about Toronto?
You sure could. Absolutely. Listen, first of all, it's kind of a populist wedge issue, don't you think, Rob?
Yeah.
That's number one here.
Yeah.
That's why these premiers are wanting to go after the city issue on bike lanes. That's number one. Number two, and this is really what the court kind of pointed out here in Ontario yesterday, is there any evidence to show that getting rid of the bike lanes actually makes traffic move quicker, gets rid of gridlock? The Ford government has long said that was the case, but presented no evidence in court to back that up. That's kind of why the judge made his decision yesterday. So I would, sort of suggest, these premiers want to talk about this. They see it maybe as being a winning issue. But is there any evidence to show that it actually gets rid of gridlock?
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. And today we're going to talk about one of the biggest and most important news stories in our country, the Carney government's intention to recognize a Palestinian state. Our phone lines are open if you want to comment right away on that. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. On this program, we try not to shy away from the controversial topics of the day. And this is certainly one of them. This is a controversial topic, recognizing a Palestinian state. It's one of those topics where passions can run high. We understand that. So as we get ready to take your phone calls and gather your opinions, all we would ask is that everyone be respectful of everyone's opinion. When it comes to the Israel-Palestine issue, it's very complicated. It has a very long history. And we are not going to bring peace to the Middle East with a 2-hour radio show. But here on Talkback, we welcome all kinds of opinions. And we recognize that this one can be very emotional for many people. No matter what side of the issue someone find themselves on. So I'm simply going to try to be a moderator today. I have my own opinions on the issue, of course. I have my own biases as well. When this issue has come up in the past, during Talkback, I have shared my own thoughts. I have been accused of being too pro-Israel. And on that, I'm probably guilty as charged. But at least as we start Talkback today, you'll know that right from the get-go. Okay? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. This is a major development, everyone, in Canada's foreign policy as it pertains to this very complicated issue, the Israel-Palestine question. The Canadian position for many decades has been one of honest broker. Now, Canada was one of the first countries in the world to recognize the state of Israel. Back in 1948, Canada has consistently supported Israel's right to exist, for Israel to have the right to defend itself. And Canada has traditionally supported the so-called two-state solution, this elusive goal of having a Palestine and Israel coexisting side by side peacefully. But the traditional position of Canada has also been that for that to happen, there must be direct negotiations between the two sides. Israel has to be involved in the negotiations. Canada has never recognized Palestinian statehood. But now Prime Minister Carney has said that's what Canada will do. What do you think of that? 1-833-668-2577. It will make it official at the United Nations General Assembly. He said yesterday that's coming up in New York City in September. The Prime Minister, as we have been reporting, has attached conditions to this recognition of statehood. Among them, Hamas, which controls Gaza, must have no role to play in any future Palestinian state. A future Palestinian state cannot have an army. It must be demilitarized, according to the Prime Minister. And there must be democratic reform. Elections must be held by the Palestinian Authority, which largely controls the West Bank, but not Gaza. And Mr. Carney said yesterday he has assurances from Mahmoud Abbas, leader of the Palestinian Authority, that this will happen. This news is less than 24 hours old. The opinion is, as expected, divided. The National Council of Muslims calls it historic, applauds the news. Canada's ambassador, Israel's ambassador to Canada, Ido Moed, issued a statement, rejected the Canadian position outright. The Center for Israel and Jewish Affairs, very critical of the decision, saying the Carney government failed to link statehood recognition to the removal of Hamas and the return of the Israeli hostages. I'm not sure that's entirely accurate, having listened to Mark Carney's news conference yesterday. Politically speaking, among our political parties, the NDP, which has long advocated for this, is very pleased, calls it a welcome development. Not so the position of the Conservative Party of Canada, which is very pro-Israel, has been for a very long time, is not happy at all. The leader of the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, said on social media yesterday that this decision from the Carney government rewards violence, not peace, and legitimizes Hamas. That's some of the history, some of the background, some of the reaction. Now we want to hear from you. Here's our question for today. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada will recognize a Palestinian state under certain conditions. Hamas must play no role. There must be democratic reform, and a Palestinian state must be demilitarized. Do you agree or disagree with this decision? 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577 is our call-in line if you want to offer an opinion on this very important issue. Would you say you agree? It's about time. 143 countries around the world have already expressed support for Palestinian statehood. And in recent days, longtime Canadian allies such as France and the UK have all also expressed a support for a state of Palestine. Or do you disagree with this decision from the Carney government, from the Prime Minister? Do you think along the lines of this rewards violence and terror? And there can't be a state of Palestine without Israel being at the table and part of the negotiations. I hope we can have an open and respectful conversation about this very serious topic today. If you've never called before, just mention that. We'll make your call a priority. 1-833-668-2577. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Our topic of the day is a big news story. And a big topic, Palestinian statehood, with Prime Minister Mark Carney saying Canada will recognize a Palestinian state, something Canada's never done before. Certain conditions would have to be met. Hamas must play no role. There must be democratic reform. Elections must be held. And a Palestinian state must be demilitarized. No army. Do you agree or disagree with this decision? Is our question. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. There are two lines available. Our first caller today is JB in Waterloo. JB.
Hey, Rob.
Hi, JB. Hi, JB. Agree or disagree?
I'm kind of in a weird spot with it. I agree that it has been done, but I feel like it's kind of really, really, really late.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Well, it's just, children are starving. People are starving. Aid's being blocked from getting into Palestine. People are being bombed senselessly. And, there's a lot of death happening unnecessarily at the hands of Hamas and Israel. And it's, the fact that the government has been holding out on having a position for almost 2 years, to me, is kind of embarrassing, quite frankly.
Well, I mean, you could argue it'd be a lot longer than 2 years. You could go back to 1948.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I don't disagree with you at all.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess the big change here is that the Canadian position used to be, two-state solution. Wouldn't that be lovely? But Israel has to be part of the negotiations. There has to be direct negotiations between the two sides, and this seems to circumvent that. What do you think about that?
I mean, sure, but Israel has demonstrated that they're not necessarily willing to cooperate.
Okay, but in the past, certainly there've been significant negotiations. Whether it's Oslo or Camp David or during the Olmert years, there was significant advancement toward creating a Palestinian state involving West Bank, Gaza, land swap, shared sovereignty over Jerusalem, all of these things, and they've all kind of eventually fallen by the wayside, unfortunately, and failed for various reasons, but Israel was always involved in the negotiations. Shouldn't Israel be involved in the negotiations? Yeah,
as long as they're willing, I suppose, and as long as it's not empty words from Netanyahu, so to speak. If it's one thing to say, it's another thing to do. So I think we need to see action, right?
Okay, but generally you're supportive of the development.
I'm supportive of the development. I'm disappointed in how long it's taken to get here.
Okay, taken too long. Fair enough. Thank you for your call, JB in Waterloo. 1, 2, 3 lines available there for you. We'd love to hear from you on the topic. 1-833-668-2577. Palestinian statehood, with Prime Minister Mark Carney saying Canada will recognize a Palestinian state under certain conditions. Agree or disagree? In Kitchener, Jersey Bill in Kitchener. Hi. What's your opinion here? Agree or disagree?
Yes. Once again, I feel that this is really putting the cart before the horse, because actually what needs to be done is that somebody needs to take responsibility, in this case, for those about 4 million people that are now in Gaza. I'm happy to see that both the Arab League and some of our European allies and Canada now have all agreed that Hamas can't be part of controlling this area. But the real problem is that there's not, even though they say, well, democratic reform and, legitimate government, but really, what kind of structure is any kind of government going to have? And are you going to try to settle the West Bank at the same time? No. What needs to be done right now is a collection of countries need to step up. They need to essentially get between the Israelis and all these Palestinians, make sure that Hamas is completely not part of the situation anymore, and then once that area is no longer a threat to Israel, because that's what happened. Hamas would get there and put their missiles on top of the rooftops and keep firing them into Israel. And of course, what happened in their incursion, that's another thing. But the thing is that that's what's not being done. Nobody ever, and this is what has bothered me since 1948. Nobody really cares about the Palestinians. The Arabs have used the Palestinians as a way to get back at Israel for its existence, and that's what creates the humanitarian crisis. The idea of a state has to be secondary. Primary, you need to get in there. Somebody needs to get in there and provide this humanitarian relief and do what needs to be done for the people. The question of statehood or what kind of autonomous or state region will occur, it has to be secondary.
Okay, so you think it's premature? It's premature right now.
Not only is it premature, but once again, these different countries are putting forth something which they don't seem to have any kind of willingness to bring into reality. It's just more nice words that have no meaning behind them, and it's really tragic. And it's tragic and not only tragic for the Palestinians, it's also tragic for the Israelis, because people on all sides have just wanted that area to be a war zone and not to be part of any kind of a decent, peaceful part of the world.
Thank you, sir, for your call. And let's take your call next. 1-833-668-2577 on this issue of Palestinian statehood on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Palestinian statehood, our topic of the day, with Prime Minister Mark Carney saying Canada will recognize a Palestinian state in September if certain conditions are met. Let's take a call from Matt in Calgary. Hello, Matt.
Hey, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Matt. Do you agree or disagree with this decision from Prime Minister Carney?
Heartily disagree. It is a foolish thing.
Why do you say
that he's done here. Well, we're right in the middle of very sensitive trade negotiations with the Americans. And so right out of the gate, we insist on infuriating the Donald,
Okay.
I think it's just wrong-headed. If that man worked for me, I'd fire him, We've got big issues right now that are very serious to a lot of Canadians. This is going to hurt a lot of Canadians. We don't get that trade agreement at least ironed out. And he insists on sticking a stick in the Donald's eye just to infuriate him, to show how the Laurentian elite are far superior to the crass Americans. That's silly, and apart from the fact, now we're rewarding terrorism. We're rewarding October 7th. It's silly. It's amateur. It's immature on the part of our government.
Okay. Just a reminder for people who may not have heard, late last night on Truth Social, Donald Trump tweeted, "Wow, Canada just announced that it is backing statehood for Palestine. That will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them. Oh, Canada." And of course, this deadline for tariffs is supposed to be tomorrow. So that it's ill-timed, to say the least, is what you're saying in part. Matt,
sure.
Right? Yeah.
And did you see today, an hour ago, he extended Mexico's
yes. Yeah, we reported on that.
Agreement.
Yeah.
So
yes.
So look at 2005. The Israelis handed the Gaza back to the Palestinians. They immediately elected Hamas, not Abbas, and they're orchestrators of their own destiny here. They've made a mess of that thing, and yes, nothing's perfect. Go back to 1948, but it's a mess, and certainly rewarding them is not going to help.
Okay, thank
And
you
it's
for your call.
hurting us.
Thank you for your call. It's hurting Canada, he says, and a terrible decision. Your opinion most welcome today on this very serious issue about Canada's foreign policy. Please have your say on Talkback today. The latest breaking news next on News Radio. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada will recognize a Palestinian state under certain conditions. Hamas must play no role. There must be elections, and a Palestinian state must be demilitarized. We want to know, do you agree or disagree with this decision from the Carney government? 1-833-668-2577. Jordan is a first-time caller calling from Calgary today. Hello, Jordan. What's your opinion? Agree or disagree?
I think I disagree with two callers ago saying this is going to hurt the trade war, but I think I agree with the caller who was 2 callers ago. I disagree with him, I agree with him who said that that this is kind of just window dressing, you know, like this is lip service essentially that Carney's doing. I don't think this is anything meaningful at all. I think he's trying to get ahead of the fact that this has become kind of politically untenable for him to, not take a stance on this genocide that's happening to the Palestinian people.
Okay, so why do you think that he's made this decision? That he's running for political cover? Is that what you're saying? Then
I think all the leaders of the West, because this is not just Carney, right? France has done this. Yes. I think England's made statements too.
France, the UK, Canada, yes.
Yeah. So basically, what they're seeing is they've been backing Israel this whole time. Israel has been committing the worst massacres, and now there's this popular resentment against this, and they're trying to get ahead of it. But this, to me, is just all lip service.
Okay. So because you think it's lip service, do you then think that there will ever be a state called Palestine with borders and a government and a duly elected government and
here's the thing, right? Here's the thing, right? In it was at 1996 you have the Oslo Accords, and so those say that the Palestinians can have their state, but it was never really under their control. The Palestinian Authority, who controlled the West Bank, was totally controlled by the Israeli state, and they were bankrupt, they were degenerate, there was corruption, and this is why Hamas has been seen as the only alternative. Now, I don't support Hamas, but you can see how a people who have been, it's either they get crushed so brutally immediately like this, or it's just, this slow sort of grind that's been happening to them. They've never had true statehood, and I don't think that that can really happen until, honestly, there's a revolution in the region.
Okay.
But yeah,
I would also point out, before the events and the attack of October 7th of 2023, Israel had left, as our caller said, Israel left Gaza in 2005, sir. Right?
No.
This
This is a misunderstanding. They did not allow them to have access to water, electricity. It was a constant grind. They had to buy all their goods from Israel itself, funneling money into the Israeli state. There was never this free relationship, and I just think that's a misunderstanding of the situation personally.
Okay, that's your personal opinion, but
it's not
look, this is a change. This is a change in Canada's longstanding position. Canada's never recognized Palestinian statehood. There was a vote at the United Nations. Canada abstained. Okay. Do you support the decision to recognize statehood?
I think that we need to stop sending weapons to Israel. I think we have.
Okay, that's not my question, sir. That's not my question. That's not my question. Question is very specific. Do you support statehood? Canada recognizing Palestinian statehood at this point?
I just think it's lip service. I don't think it's anything credible.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you. Tim in Halifax is up next. Tim. Hello, Tim.
Yeah, too many. It's a clever ploy with all the stipulations, because everybody knows Hamas is not going to accept any of it, and every Western leader says the same thing. this has got to happen, that's got to happen, the other thing's got to happen. So we know
Okay.
it's not going to happen. Okay, as the other gentleman said, no Israelis in Gaza since 2005. Now remember, what a lot of people forget, they say the genocide of Palestinians or whatever. Well, there are 2 million Palestinians living in Israel. They hold office in government. They go to work. They own businesses. They go to school, et cetera, et cetera. I don't see them being, marched into gas chambers or executed or anything like that. We are talking about radical Islamic terrorists and their supporters. Remember that when they are taught from birth all the way through school to hate and kill Jews, infidels, etc. And that's a fact, So how do you make peace with a people like that? Now, if they want to lay down their arms, billions of dollars, billions and billions and billions of dollars went into Gaza. And what happened with the money? They bought rockets, weapons, instead of building buildings, infrastructure,
Okay.
Who wouldn't want to go up to a beach on Gaza, on the Mediterranean? I mean, that would have been a tourist mecca had it been all done right. But no, they wasted it by buying weapons, firing rockets into Israel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And now people want to recognize it. I don't know where this support for
So do you
Islamic
again, just to circle back, and I'm trying to keep it more or less narrowly focused here. Do you disagree or agree with the decision from Mark Carney, who says he's going to recognize the Palestinian state, something Canada's never done before?
It's the typical liberal run around trying to please everybody and pleasing nobody.
So do you disagree with it? You disagree with it then?
Oh yeah.
All right, fair enough. Gotcha. Thank you. I have to stop here, Tim. Thank you. Be right back, though. 2 lines available there. This is a busy topic today, but we'd love to get as many opinions as we can on Palestinian statehood and Prime Minister Carney's intention to recognize a Palestinian state at the United Nations General Assembly in September. Conditions apply. 1-833-668-2577. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What are your thoughts? Agree or disagree with Mark Carney's decision to have Canada recognize a Palestinian state if certain conditions are met, such as Hamas playing no role, democratic reform, demilitarization of a Palestinian state? Keith in Nova Scotia, you're up next, Keith. Hi there. Yep.
Hi there, Rob.
Hi, Keith.
Well, hi. I don't agree with what Carney has done. I think he jumped the gun. I think he should have waited at least until we got through these tariff negotiations with Donald Trump. Instead of that, he has gone ahead and made his statements, and now Donald Trump is not a happy camper. So Carney may have put himself in a real pickle, because now that he's done this, he can't back out and change his mind, because if he does, in my opinion, Donald Trump will just jump all over that, and that will be perceived as weak, and he won't take Carney serious about anything in the future as far as I'm concerned. So that's my opinion. And as far as this negotiations and wanting Hamas to do this and Hamas to do that, they're not going to listen to Mark Carney. I mean, it's just a joke. You cannot defeat an ideology, and Hamas is an ideology with their radical Islamic concepts. So I think it's just kind of made a mess of things, and I don't know. And when's the last time there's ever been peace anywhere in the Middle East? I mean, complete peace.
Right. Okay.
I would be at a loss to try to tell you what the answer to that is.
Right. Okay, Keith, thank you for sharing your opinion today. To Chris up next, calling from Calgary today. Hello, Chris. You're up next. What's your opinion?
Hey, Rob,
you agree
how
or
you doing?
disagree? I'm great, sir. Do you agree or disagree with this decision from the Prime Minister?
Well, if you just look at the proposal on the surface, sure, wouldn't it be wonderful? We'll have peace in the Middle East, and the Palestinians will have a state, and there'll be democracy, and blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. But a couple questions come to mind. Who's going to run this state? Is it going to be Hamas? They don't want peace. They want to eradicate the earth of every Jew, and then once they're done with the Jews, they'll come after everybody else. Is it going to be the Palestinian Authority? They're not quite as bad as Hamas, but they have the same
It
philosophy.
seems to be what Mr. Carney thinks. It will be the Palestinian Authority, which would have to hold elections. Mr. Carney says he talked with Mahmoud Abbas yesterday, and that Mr. Abbas assured him that he would hold elections, but he has made that promise before only to break it.
He hasn't held elections in Judea and Samaria where he's currently ruling. And the reason is because if he held elections, Hamas would win.
Okay, so you think it is what?
I think, well, do I
Fantasy?
agree with
He's
it?
living
Sure,
in a
I'd like to-
fantasy land? Is he living in a fantasy land, Mark Carney? Is this naivete?
Yes.
What do you think? Okay.
Yes, he's living in a fantasy land. If Canada really wanted to support a resolution to the problems in Gaza, first thing we could do is stop sending humanitarian aid to Gaza that Hamas immediately steals and turns into missiles and terror tunnels and everything else. We're playing both sides of the game at the same time. On the one hand, we're saying we want to end the violence, and on the other hand, we're funding it.
All right, Chris, thank you very much for your call. Time for one more before we have to stop here. Who's up next? I think it's Glenn is up next in Nova Scotia. Let's take Glenn's call. Yes, there we go. Glenn, we have connected. What do you think of this decision? Is it something you agree with or disagree with, Glenn?
I think I agree with one of the callers there that said that Carney has jumped the gun on this thing. He could have waited before he made his decision on making Palestine, have their own, whatever you call it. I think he should have waited until this tariff war was subsided. And I think what he has done now is angered Trump even more. I hate to say it, I didn't vote for Carney, even though I liked him as governor one time when he was in Canada and everything. I thought he was an excellent governor. But I find him now looking kind of weak. I don't find him strong. And so to me, it's a shame that innocent children that you watch on TV and you see them with nothing but skeletons and everything, these are the ones that have to suffer because I hate to say it, that some leaders have to make some stupid decisions in order to stop this war that are people that are actually innocent. They're not terrorists. They're innocent people, for God's sake, these women and their small children. How can the world allow this to continue to happen? I think, the armies are big in the whole world. Why don't they just go in there and stop this completely? They can get rid of the Hamas. They don't need Israel to do that in their way by just bombing it all the time. Go in there with an army and eliminate them.
Okay. But this seems to be, and we're going to have to stop there, and I thank you for your call, but this seems to be a common opinion today. It's premature. He's jumped the gun. One of the callers say he put the cart before the horse. A popular opinion so far. What's your opinion? Agree or disagree? 1-833-668-2577 to have your say on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about Palestinian statehood and the Prime Minister's announcement that Canada would recognize a Palestinian state. Your thoughts, please. Jean in Calgary. Jean, do you agree or disagree with this decision, Jean?
I disagree with that decision, absolutely.
And why?
The reason is I think there's a number of things that basically make it completely invalid. One of the first things is I would like to see Carney actually focus on the problems we have in this country before he goes off elsewhere and tries to fix something that he has no capability of doing so. And the second thing is that you are basically making a statement that you can't back up with respect to action. It's something that, basically is, at this point in time, completely meaningless, because the only people who are ever going to solve this are the people who are there, who've got the conflict. And, they, whether they try or they can't or whatever, do have to come to some common ground sometime. And I think one of the most difficult things is it's a region that basically has the mantra of an eye for an eye. And you're seeing that happen right now after the incredibly horrible things that happened October 7th. The fact that the governing body within Palestine right now is refusing to give up the hostages. I think you're seeing quite a bit of that type of application of that particular thing happening. But having had said all of that, I don't know how Canada could possibly step in and do anything to change that, given that it's the people who are in conflict who have to be the ones who step up and do something about it.
Okay, thank you. Gene in Calgary, Bernie in Mississauga. I would imagine you wholeheartedly agree with this, Bernie. Would I be right
yes,
there?
I'd like to see the borders put backward to 1947 when the state of Israel was created, so the Palestinians would have their own state. As far as the Donald go, to hell with the Donald. He wants to make it a resort for the rich and famous. That's what his idea of Gaza is, so no one should look to him for any kind of direction. And as far as Israel and Palestine concerned, in 1993 they had the Oslo Accords with Yasser Arafat and Yitzhak Rabin. They almost had a peace deal done, and who was in the background coming to power but Netanyahu, and they bumped Rabin off and killed the peace deal. So the Israelis don't want as much peace as they're letting on they want. They want control over Gaza. They want all the land. They want the waterfront, and they want complete control of the West Bank. That's my opinion.
Okay. What about this idea, Bernie, of no Hamas? How realistic is that?
Well, before Hamas, it was the PLO. Were in power in Palestine. And I said they always had a peace agreement with the Israelis. They always were there. And the right wing in Israel bumped off Yitzhak Rabin. It was the right winger that bumped them off. So they don't want peace as much as the Palestinians, the ordinary poor people that are caught in between.
Right. But you have and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you have the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank and you have Hamas in Gaza. If you're going to have a Palestinian state, one of these groups you would think is going to end up governing this state. Is it realistic that it can be done without Hamas playing any role? Because that's what Mr. Carney says has to happen. Do you think that's realistic?
Right now, the actors you got in play with the right-wing government in Israel, Hamas got a right to be there.
Hamas has a right to be there. Wow, Bernie. Oh, my gosh. We've sparred on this one over the years, but I'm surprised to hear you say that. We'll be right back. A full hour just ahead on this topic. If you're on the line, please just hang on. We'll bring you up to date on a very busy news day today. This is News Radio. Welcome to the second hour of Talkback. I'm Rob Snow. Our topic of the day, Palestinian statehood and Prime Minister Carney's plan to recognize, he says, a Palestinian state under certain conditions. Among those conditions, Hamas will have no role to play. There must be democratic reform. Elections must be held by the Palestinian Authority, and any future Palestinian state must be demilitarized. Let's go to Fred in Fall River, Nova Scotia. Hello, Fred. You're up next. What's your opinion, Fred?
Hello, Rob. Can you hear me?
I hear you just fine, Fred. Go ahead. What's your opinion, please?
My opinion is that Prime Minister Mark Carney has made a foolish decision to recognize Palestine. It's foolish on many accounts. Probably the most prominent is the fact that the Palestinian people have never wanted a two-state solution. They have wanted the elimination of Israel. Time and time again, attempts have been made to have a two-state solution under Arafat and others, and it's always been rejected. And surveys with the Palestinian people themselves overwhelmingly say we do not want a two-state solution. We want Israel removed off the face of the map, and we want to take over the entire area. So for our Prime Minister and Macron and Stammer to talk like this is some sort of political foolishness to appeal to some sort of liberal base that they think that they're appealing to with this decision.
So you think there is a role for maybe some of this is motivated with what I would call diaspora politics for a domestic audience, sir?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Rob.
Okay.
There's a lot of misinformation amongst Canadians and indeed others as well about the Palestinian issue and the struggles that Israel has had and the people of Palestine have had. The Palestinian people's worst enemy have been those that have ruled over them, the PLO and Hamas. They're the ones that have disenfranchised their own people, propagandized their own people, taught them to hate Israel, taught them not to settle for anything but the annihilation of the Jew. This makes it untenable to deal with until we can get to a fundamental level where people want peace and they want a two-state solution, which I don't see us ever getting to at this point because this generation of Palestinians, as I mentioned earlier, are not interested in a two-state solution. No, Canada has done nothing in this. They've antagonized the United States, who has been supporting Israel at a critical time when we're trying to come up with a trade agreement. And I must say we've handled that terribly. The Americans asked for just 3 simple things from Canada, and we obfuscated and danced around the bush and haven't done what we had promised to do. And we're in the mess we're in right now to the detriment of our country.
Okay, Fred, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for sharing your opinion. Let's try Heather again in Calgary. You had some trouble connecting again. Hi, Heather. Can you hear me now?
Hi. Yes, I can.
Heather.
Can you hear me?
Yes, hear you just loud and clear. Please share your opinion on the topic, please. Go ahead.
You know, I know this is not going to be popular with a lot of your callers, but I am in support of it. I support it mostly because enough is enough. Israel has had lots of opportunity here, and I feel they've gone way beyond whatever should have happened for retaliation. I really feel for the innocent people of Gaza who are starving, and quite frankly, it bothers me that we sit here while our basic needs are being met in Canada, and are upset that Carney has timed this with the tariff negotiations. Easy for us to sit and say that when we are eating and we are housed and we are not living with bombs going off around us. And, you know, like it or not, we are a global society now. I don't know how well the Palestinians would do with that. But as far as the Palestinians wanting, you know, equalization and two-state solutions, I don't think we're going to get anywhere near there until we actually stop the Israelis from doing what they're doing, because what would be the motivation for Palestinians to have any other opinion of them, quite frankly?
Okay, fair points. I think all around minority opinion today on this program anyway, Heather, but I thank you for sharing your comment. I mean, Prime Minister Mark Carney didn't come right out and say this, but he did seem to suggest that this push now from some Western powers, the UK, France, Canada, to recognize the Palestinian state is a direct consequence of Israel's actions, that Israel's gone too far in its retaliation after the attack of October 7th. I think it's Mark Carney's of the thinking that Israel has crossed lines. And because of the situation, things have become so dire in Gaza that hopes for a two-state solution have faded away. And that this may be a path forward to try and bring the goal of a two-state solution back to life. Palestine here, Israel there. The Prime Minister, I will reiterate, said yesterday more than once, Hamas has to release the hostages, can have no role to play in a future Palestinian state. And it would seem it would be governed by the Palestinian Authority, at least for now. The PA would have to hold elections. And he says, Mr. Carney says he's been assured by the leadership of the PA that it's willing to do that. And he said the Palestinian state would need to be demilitarized, can't have an army. Those are the conditions. Prime Minister Carney says Abbas of the Palestinian Authority is on board with these conditions. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But what do you think? As we continue with hour number 2 of Talkback, do you agree or disagree with this decision from the new Canadian Prime Minister to recognize a Palestinian state under those terms? It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
We're talking about Palestinian statehood today, and Prime Minister Mark Carney's announcement yesterday in Ottawa that his government will recognize a Palestinian state. Your thoughts, please. Jack in Bedford, Nova Scotia. Hello, Jack. You're up next. What do you think?
Hi, Rob. How are you?
Hi, Jack. I'm great, Jack. Thank you.
I am definitely opposed to it. I think Mark Carney made a mistake, but I think it all started with Macron first, standing up and wanting the spotlight for a Palestinian state, a two-state solution. Just when everyone was at the negotiating table to free the hostages, these hostages that have been held 30 meters below ground for more than 2 years now, and being beaten, and God knows what is going on with them. A lot of them are dead. Israel's just asking for their hostages back. Bring the hostages home, and the war will stop. Now, it's interesting that so many people are talking about the atrocities going on in Gaza with the starvation. A lot of the pictures that have been coming out have been debunked as fake. There are people with muscular diseases, cerebral palsy, different things of that nature. A lot of the pictures have adults, family members, and other children that are extremely healthy looking. In fact, some, I would say, are even obese. And I just want to give you a few facts.
Okay.
I just want to give you a few facts. The Gaza Ministry of Health reported 115 fake deaths from malnutrition since October 7th, 2023. In Ethiopia, 74,583 malnutrition deaths in 2025. Bangladesh, 95 to 100,000 estimated deaths related to malnutrition. Angola, 30 to 35,000. Sudan, 520,000 people starved to death in the past 2 years. And does anybody report that in the news? Is there an outcry for that? Where's the humanitarian aid for these people? None.
Okay. So you disagree with the decision to recognize a Palestinian state?
Oh, wholeheartedly. I'm a Jew. I'm one of the ones being hunted.
Okay.
So,
all right, Jack.
You know,
sorry, Jack. Yeah, I've got to run. Jam phone lines on this one. Let's go to Calgary again. And Timothy is up next in Calgary. Hello, Timothy.
Thank you, Rob. Always nice
welcome.
calling into your show. This is a very popular topic. I wish I could just say yes and no, and but Mark Carney is somebody I am conservative through and through. I actually called in on your show to say that if Mark Carney was in the Conservative Party, it would have been an easy win because at that time it was a close call. However, since he became president, I've loved and respected him until now. This was, I don't know why he chose to do this at this point, because the Palestinians have a saying from sea to sea, if I'm not mistaken. They do not want a two-state solution, as many of your callers have said.
From the river to the sea. From the river to the sea.
My apologies. Yes, from the river to the sea. Yeah. So many of them don't even want a two-state solution. They don't want Israel. So him coming out to say this, amid all the tension at home and everything, it's slightly misguided, and just shows he's a strong liberal. I guess he has to appeal to his base. But no, I do not support this. Just like many of your callers have said, and I don't see it working. Yeah.
All right, thank you for your call. To Andre in Kitchener is up next. Thank you, Andre, for your call. What are your thoughts? Do you agree or disagree with this decision, Andre?
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Andre. What do you think?
So, first I want to say that I'm very for the people. Like, come on now. We just ride different boat in the same ocean. But the thing is that you ever played Risk, Rob?
Oh, decades ago. Not since I was a child. Yeah.
And since I love geography, I love history, and I don't know too much about Middle East. But like I said before, my two cousins were in the army, so I know a lot about kind of the war. Just like Jersey Bill said earlier, he's a veteran, so he's very passionate. And what I have to say about this situation is, I have friends that are Muslim, Palestinian, Vietnamese, whatever. Multicultural, and there's so many things happening. And I agree with a lot of callers when they say that no matter what, our prime minister jumped way too fast on this, for one. For two, it's a hot topic over there, so why put her finger there when we already have a hot topic here? I don't believe it's his fault. I believe, just like Trudeau before, 9 years, I think that didn't we just had a G7 summit?
Yeah, in Kananaskis, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that there's been a plan with the NATO and all that, and unfortunately we have to do something. We're NATO, and we have England that's backing us up with the States. So that's what I think that's happening. But I still believe, like other people have said, we should have left it alone.
Okay. All right, Andre. Yeah, we've got to run, Andre. That's our time. But I thank you for your call. You think, like other callers have said today, and it's been a pretty popular opinion, it's premature. The timing isn't right. Very popular opinion. Maybe you share that opinion. Maybe you don't. Offer it up. 1-833-668-2577 on the topic of Palestinian state.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now. Hello. 1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
There's a very significant foreign policy announcement yesterday from Prime Minister Carney after a cabinet meeting in Ottawa, coming out and saying that Canada would recognize a Palestinian state with conditions that Hamas play no role, that there be democratic reform, that the Palestinian state be demilitarized. We have been asking today whether you agree or disagree with that decision from Canada's Prime Minister. Said it will happen at the General Assembly of the United Nations in September. For the first time in quite a while, we have some phone lines available. So if you would like to join the discussion and share an opinion on this topic today, now would be a great time to do it. The wait will not be long at all. 1-833-668-2577. Joe is in Kitchener, and he's up next. What's your opinion, Joe?
Rob, how are you?
I'm good, Joe. Thank you.
Good. So, Rob, you know what? Let's call it what it is. First of all, I am amazed at how many callers have been calling into your show today supporting what Israel is doing. Okay? It's just unfathomable to me. First of all, let's call it what it is. It's a genocide. Israel, I think myself, Netanyahu, let's talk about him. Do you really think that he cares about those hostages? They're going to be collateral damage. He's interested in getting rid of as many of the Palestinians as he possibly can. It's a genocide. Wake up, people. That's exactly what it is. And we better face it. And for Carney to make the comments that he did, I applaud him for doing that. I wish all the leaders in the world would do the same thing, because Israel, bottom line is, it's about money, it's about resources. They want Gaza Strip, and that's what they want. And Trump is right there with them, and his son-in-law is Jewish, okay? And I have nothing against Jewish people. The citizens, I know some, they're excellent people. Netanyahu is the biggest problem, and Trump is a big problem too, supporting it. I am really, really disappointed in a lot of the major countries that are just small talking this stuff and not really doing anything about it. Rob, I'll say it one more time. It's a genocide. How anyone can watch the news and see all those children starving to death is beyond me. That's all I have to say, Rob.
Well, just before you run, because we only have about 45 seconds, where this differs from Canada's traditional stance is that Israel is not part of the discussion here. Shouldn't Israel have a chance to be at the table if there's going to be a negotiation about a two-state solution?
Rob, Israel has said they were going to do a ceasefire here, and then they're going to do a ceasefire there, then they're going to do a pause here. Israel, I do not believe, is interested in a situation where we're Palestine, where the Palestinians would have their own land. I think that's what the problem is. And Netanyahu is just taking advantage of everything, and that's happened. So anyway, I don't have a lot of confidence in Israel wanting to really come to the table.
All right, Joe, that's your opinion. You're welcome to it, sir, and thank you for sharing it. If you share Joe's opinion or disagree or have an entirely different opinion, share it here as well in the final half hour of Talkback on News Radio. So our topic of the day has been Palestinian statehood. Love the discussion so far. And for the first time since our program started Talkback about an hour and a half ago now, we have every single phone line is available right now. So if you call, your wait will be mere minutes. Okay. We've had callers wait today half hour, 45 minutes to have their say. And I really appreciate everyone. It's been a very respectful dialogue for the most part. I'm really happy to hear that. But Prime Minister Carney said yesterday, Canada is going to recognize a Palestinian state in September. There was a cabinet meeting in Ottawa yesterday about this. And then after the cabinet meeting was just after 5 o'clock Eastern time, the Prime Minister emerged alongside the Minister of Foreign Affairs now, Anita Anand. And this is what he said.
Canada intends to recognize the state of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada will increase its efforts in supporting strong democratic governance in Palestine and the contributions of its people to a more peaceful and hopeful future. I spoke today with President Abbas at length to reaffirm his commitments. Canada reiterates that Hamas must immediately release all hostages taken in the horrific terrorist attack of October 7th, that Hamas must disarm, and that Hamas must play no role in the future governance of Palestine.
So that was Mark Carney in his opening remarks, and then he did take some questions. The first question was from Paul Wells, the great political writer who writes for his own Substack now, who wanted to know more about the conditions and the speed with which he thought these conditions could come into effect. Here again is Prime Minister Carney.
It's predicated, it relies upon the representations that have been made by the Palestinian Authority, representations that have been made now several times, both publicly spoken, in writing to me as Prime Minister, and representations that I tested, if you will, President Abbas in a lengthy and robust call today to confirm the intentions and the ability to do so. Now, part of what Minister Anand and her colleagues are doing is to provide some resources to help with some governance aspects of those. But of course, the most important elements of those representations with respect to the democratic process. Who cannot be part of that process? Hamas. Who can play no role in the future state? Hamas. The demilitarization and the persistent demilitarized Palestinian state, and of course the reinforcement of the importance of living side by side in peace and security with Israel.
So that's the Carney position on state recognition for Palestine. No role for Hamas, democratic reform, a Palestinian state that is demilitarized. Canada is now the third country in the last week to say it is willing to recognize a Palestinian state. France first, then the UK, now Canada. What is the view in Israel of this? Well, this is the Speaker of Israel's parliament, the Knesset, Amir Ohana. He's denouncing these moves from these countries to recognize a Palestinian state.
We are ushering in a new era in the Middle East, an era of increased stability, coexistence, and cooperation. Rewarding Hamas by recognizing a Palestinian state in light of October 7th will not bring stability, coexistence, and cooperation. It will bring more murder of Israelis and Jews. If you wish for that, if you wish what you call a Palestinian state, put it up in London, in Paris, in your countries, which become more and more similar to the Middle East. The so-called peace that some European countries advocate for will only result in more war. But the war we are fighting will result in peace.
And then you have the view from the White House. There was a late-night social media post from the U.S. President Donald Trump who said, quote, "Wow, Canada has just announced it is backing statehood for Palestine. They will make it very hard for us to make a trade deal with them, oh Canada." Of course, the background for that, this deadline that looms for tomorrow on trade and tariffs with the Trump administration, the clock ticking down on that. Politically and domestically, and in our partisan politics, the Conservative Party leader, Pierre Poilievre, he posted on social media, did not have a public event today on this, however, said Mr. Carney's decision, quote, "rewards violence, not peace, and legitimizes Hamas." The NDP has long called for Canada to recognize a Palestinian state, put forward a motion in the House of Commons that was defeated soundly on the matter, actually. But it called this, nevertheless, a welcome step forward. So that's kind of a reset of the topic. We'd love to take a few more calls on it here in the home stretch of Talkback today. We want to know whether you agree or disagree with this decision from Mark Carney, the Prime Minister of Canada, who says he is going to recognize a Palestinian state. I'm Rob Snow. It's Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What do you think of the decision by Prime Minister Carney to move ahead and recognize a Palestinian state? Canada's never done that before. You agree or disagree with that decision from the Prime Minister? Anton is up next on Talkback here. He's calling from Kitchener. Hello, Anton.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome, Anton. Your opinion, please.
Yes. Really, I am in the middle of the point between agree and disagree. The point I am like to see is what conditions is Canada really asking for and how is going to supervise that is happening. I'm saying this because we know there have been a lot of political problem within Gaza with Hamas. And if they don't obey any law or anything, how are we going to guarantee that? What result is going to have a Palestine state? Absolutely challenging. One. Second, the issue for me is timing was not the best to do this. It's the worst timing, as other people said, we have bigger problems right now. And the fourth issue is no blaming, not doing anything, but what are the Middle East countries doing to support this situation there? They refuse to take Palestine people. They close the borders to their own people. Then come Canada, and as a country I am welcome as an immigrant, but we cannot save the world with issues like that. Have been clearly Palestine people used as a shield in the war with Israel, and have been seen in different wars. I am old enough to know that is true. The people are put as a shield against the other one, and then they blame the attackers. Therefore, I think their decision has to be based on what result is going to give to recognize Palestine, and what are we going to do if nothing within their situation changes. As they create a new state, we'll have another state in everywhere in the world, but with no rules from the different laws that are used in the Western society, to say something. And that's my point. My point is more accountability from the people from Hamas should disappear first, and second, what the rest of the Middle East countries are willing to do it. If they close the border to their own people, and I think these are more political for everyone, that situation like this is happening. I feel so sorry for people dying. I am very humanitarian. I think death is something that can be avoided in this situation. But
thank you, Anton. Thank you, Anton. You've outlined your position very well, sir. I thank you for your call. BG calling from Calgary today. BG, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes. Even though to me I say yes, I agree with it, even though it doesn't mean much. What I think is doesn't make any sense when all of the world keep saying a demilitarized state. So they want them to just be there and like a killing field. The Palestinians have been slaughtered every day for like almost, 100 years, over 3/4 of a century. And everybody keep talking about October 7th, but they never talk about the reason why October 7th happened. I can understand that, it was wrong in a way, but if they haven't been treated like they've been treated for all of these years, I don't think they would have been in a position to do what they did in October 7th. And for those people who keep, for example, this guy who just said a while ago, make a state for them in France or England or anywhere in Europe, whatever, he should maybe go back to history. He would find that he's the one who a descendant of European. The Palestinians are from Palestine. Anybody who dare tell the truth, they call them anti-Jewish or whatever.
Well, of course, the Jews have called that part of the world home for thousands of years, though, sir.
Is it
you
really
can't ignore
the
that.
Jew that called it for thousands of years? Was it really the European or the Hebrew that looked the same as the Palestinian or even darker?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't quite understand what you said there. Can you repeat that, please?
For thousands of years ago, like you say, it was the Hebrew, that was in the land. But the people that is there today, are they the original people? How many of them you think you will find that is the original people?
Okay, but do you not agree that Israel has a right to exist?
Yes,
that there shouldn't be a homeland for the Jewish people?
Yes, they give it to them. They leave they kick them out of their country in Europe. Okay, now today you could say yes, It is their home. I agree. Yes.
Okay.
But the Palestinians deserve their home also.
Okay. So let's just kind of cut to the chase here. Canada has never ever recognized a Palestinian state until Mark Carney said yesterday, we're going to do that. Do you agree with that decision, sir?
Yes, I do.
You do. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up there. You have outlined your position, sir. And I have given you the time, been generous with the time, so you could do that, as I've done with all our callers today. And we'll do it probably with one or two more when we come back. And we'll be in the home stretch of Talkback today on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Time for one, maybe two more calls here in the final few minutes that we have on the issue of recognizing a state of Palestine. Canada will do that as soon as September, according to Mark Carney in a statement yesterday in Ottawa. Is that something you agree with, disagree with? What do you think about the idea? Mohammed in Calgary. Mohammed.
Hey, Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you, sir. Your opinion, please.
Yes. First-time caller here. I just wanted to call. I've been listening to your show a long time, but first-time caller. And, I just wanted to give a little history lesson to people here today. Like, a lot of people think that Hamas have existed forever. And, but this conflict has been going on since 20th century, right? And Hamas it's a byproduct of oppression. It's a byproduct of people getting their family members killed, their land being taken away. So I don't support Hamas, firstly, but it's a byproduct of the oppression that they have been facing, right? Hamas was not there even 30 years ago, all right? So Hamas will not be there.
It's been around. Hamas has been around since about 87, 88. So it's close to 40 years now.
28 years, yes, so not even 30 years yet. So it's a byproduct of the oppression, and they are a guerrilla movement. I don't support them, but they're a guerrilla movement fighting against pretty much U.S. and Israel together. So I don't think they will be there if they're not oppressed, if their family members are not killed, if their land is not stolen, right? Like, why would, it did not exist since 20th century. It's not a kingdom. It's not like an oppressor. Hamas is a byproduct, right? It's a byproduct of what's happening in grounds, pretty much. So in my opinion,
let me ask you this, Mohammed. Mr. Carney has suggested Hamas can have no role in a Palestinian state. I mean, Hamas rules Gaza. Hamas is the government. I would say it won the election in 2006, hasn't had another election since, but it's not just a military force. Hamas controls most of the social infrastructure there as well. Is it realistic to say, well, we're going to have a Palestinian state and Hamas will have no say in it at all? Okay. Is that realistic?
Okay, I understand. So when you say they control it, so if you look on the map, Gaza has one side with ocean with the water, one side with Israel, and one side with Egypt. So they don't control anything. They are pretty much surviving under the condition they're put into. If you want to call that control, sure. But again, I'm telling you, this is a byproduct. Where how would they have elections? They can't have elections. They're busy burying their kids. They're busy fighting for their land. And this is Gaza. What about West Bank?
And plotting invasions and the slaughter of 1,200 Israelis, I would say as well.
Yes. So I hear that all the time, and I sympathize with their family members. 1,200 Israelis died that day, 100%. But now we are giving them a license to go commit a genocide. Let's for a second say it's not a genocide and what they're doing is self-defense. Then what about the Palestinians that have been subjugated to killing since the 20th century? It's not new conflict. It's been happening for a long time. So when they say they are pretty much fighting for their freedom, they're saying we retaliated on October 7th. I'm not saying it's a retaliation, but that's what they are saying, right? So
okay.
Pretty much,
So do you view this as a positive step, sir? Very quickly, because our time is running out. Is it a positive step for Canada here, in your opinion?
Let's say I'm a proud Canadian today.
You're a proud Canadian today. Okay, thank you. We'll wrap it up there. Thank you. Thank you for all of your calls. Back tomorrow, Friday, Free for All Talkback Hour. We can jump right back into this or anything else tomorrow. You'll take the lead.